You might be sabotaging your own financial progress without even realizing it. Believe me, that's exactly what happened to me. For years, I thought I was on the right path. I worked hard, paid my bills on time, and hoped that at some point I would have money left over. But that moment never came. There was always an unexpected expense, an urgent cost, or a bill I couldn't ignore. Then one day, I received a piece of advice that completely changed my perspective on money. The problem isn't how much you earn, but how you manage what you earn. Those words hit me like a reality check. In that instant, I realized that the real reason I was stuck wasn't a lack of money, but a specific habit that was sabotaging all my chances of building wealth. This habit was so common and deeply ingrained that it seemed harmless, but in reality, it was a true thief of prosperity. When I finally got rid of it, my income started to grow, new opportunities appeared, and for the first time, I felt in control of my financial life. And now, I'm going to tell you exactly what that habit was and how it was preventing my prosperity. If you keep making the same mistake, you could spend your entire life working without ever moving forward. But if you understand this today, you can make the big shift I did and finally start building the wealth you deserve. Have you ever felt like your days keep repeating, as if you were stuck in a cycle with no progress? That's exactly how Jim lived for years. An ordinary young man with no big ambitions, living paycheck to paycheck, blaming his circumstances for his situation. He believed that success was just a matter of luck or privileges he didn't have. But one day something changed. Jim realized that the problem wasn't a lack of opportunities, it was the way he viewed his own life that kept him stuck. This transformation didn't happen by chance. It was a reality check that made him understand that wealth isn't built on luck but on daily, intentional choices. It all started when he met a mentor, Earl, a successful entrepreneur who asked him a simple but devastating question: "Why aren't you rich yet?" Jim tried to justify himself with excuses, pointing to external factors, but Earl didn't let it slide. With a raw and undeniable truth, he responded, "Your bank account doesn't lie. If you want to change your finances, you first need to change your mindset." Those words hit Jim like a punch to the gut, harsh but necessary. For the first time, he realized that his financial situation wasn't the result of fate or external forces, but a direct reflection of his mindset and the choices he made every single day. If he truly wanted to prosper, he would need to change from the inside out. And that's when his transformation began. Jim decided to fully immerse himself in learning about success. He read everything he could find about wealth, a winning mindset, and the habits of prosperous people. But he soon realized something essential. Absorbing knowledge was just the first step. The real change didn't come from what he read but from what he did every day. But before we talk about the habits that drive this transformation, it's important to understand what Jim was like before this change. Jim Rohn wasn't born a millionaire. In fact, his adult life started just like many others. No money, no prospects, and full of excuses. He worked hard but lived on autopilot, spending everything he earned and convincing himself that this was the only possible reality. His routine was predictable. He woke up early, went to work, came home exhausted, watched TV, and eagerly waited for the weekend. He dreamed of a better life but took no concrete action to achieve it. What he didn't yet know was that small daily changes can create a silent revolution in one's financial life. The big breakthrough never happens all at once. It comes through a series of smarter, incremental decisions. Jim believed that success depended on external factors: luck, the economy, opportunities, the government. If things weren't going well, it was never his fault. He saw people around him thriving but couldn't understand how they did it. To him, life was a matter of fate. Some were born to win while others were meant to merely survive. Little did he know that this mindset was his greatest prison. As long as he kept believing he had no control over his own destiny, he remained trapped in the same frustrating reality. And this didn't just affect his finances. His mindset shaped every aspect of his life: his friendships, his health, his future. He kept making the same choices, following destructive habits, and inevitably getting the same mediocre results. But everything started to change the day he had a powerful insight. One of those moments when the truth becomes so clear that it's impossible to ignore. That moment marked the beginning of his transformation. On an ordinary day, during a conversation he would never forget, Jim was complaining about his lack of money. That's when he heard a sentence that made him freeze. "Jim, do you know why you're broke? Because you accepted it." Those words felt like an electric shock. His whole life he had blamed the economy, the government, low wages, but he had never considered that the real problem was himself. For the first time, he realized that his financial reality wasn't the result of chance but a direct reflection of the choices he made every day. This insight was uncomfortable, but it was also liberating. If the problem was within him, that meant the solution was also within his reach. From that moment on, he began to see the world differently. He observed wealthy people and noticed that they had a completely different mindset. They didn't blame circumstances, nor did they wait for opportunities to fall from the sky. They created their own opportunities, made strategic decisions, and took control of their own destiny. That's when Jim made a promise to himself. He would never again live on autopilot. He would never again let his bank account reflect his lack of discipline. But he quickly realized there was a crucial detail in changing his financial reality, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about now. Jim discovered that there was one specific habit sabotaging his chances of success. A habit that many people carry without realizing it's a true thief of wealth. Jim Rohn's biggest mistake? Spending without thinking. He didn't earn a bad salary, but every dollar that came in left just as quickly. If there was any money left at the end of the month, an excuse to spend it would soon appear. A dinner here, an impulsive purchase there, I deserve this, after a long, tiring week. The problem wasn't just a lack of financial control but the mindset behind this behavior. Jim believed he needed to reward himself for his hard work, without realizing that he was actually sabotaging his own future. This habit was silent but destructive. He said he wanted to be rich, but his actions told a different story. That's when he started observing the millionaires around him and noticed they did the exact opposite. Instead of spending first and saving later, they invested first and lived on what was left. This reality check completely changed his view on money. It wasn't about how much he earned but how he used what he earned. If he stayed stuck in that cycle, he would never achieve financial freedom. Determined to change, Jim started reprogramming his habits. First, he set aside 10% of everything he earned for investments. Then he increased it to 20%. He replaced impulsive purchases with income-generating assets. Over time he saw his reality shift. But there was a second factor sabotaging his success, one that many people overlook: the environment around him. Jim Rohn realized something most people never do. The people you spend the most time with directly influence your destiny. When he analyzed his social circle, he noticed he was surrounded by people who lived exactly like him, without money, without ambition, and content with mediocrity. They reinforced limiting beliefs and mocked any idea that seemed too grand. And the worst part? Jim was unconsciously absorbing this pattern. That's when he understood that changing his financial life required more than just altering his habits. He also needed to change the people he connected with. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about now. That's when Jim heard a phrase that would change his life forever. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. At that moment, everything made sense. If he wanted to become wealthy, he needed to learn from those who had already made it. That meant distancing himself from people who held him back and seeking new influences. But this decision wasn't easy. Some friendships were left behind and he felt the weight of that change. However, the sacrifice was worth every moment of discomfort. By connecting with people who thought big, made strategic decisions, and had a long-term vision, Jim began to change from within. His mindset evolved, his actions aligned with his new social circle, and before long he started seeing real results. But that was just one of the factors keeping him stuck. The biggest obstacle he had to overcome ran much deeper: his scarcity mindset. That's when he had his second major insight. True poverty wasn't in his bank account, it was in his mind. For years, Jim believed that money was hard to earn, that wealth was a privilege for the few, and that great opportunities only came to those who were lucky. Without realizing it, he was trapped in a vicious cycle. Those who think small act small. Those who act small get small results. Those who see small results reinforce the belief that big achievements aren't meant for them. This mindset kept him stuck, always waiting for the right moment to take action, without realizing that the right moment would never come. It was only when he started studying the wealthy that he noticed the fundamental difference between his old mindset and theirs. Prosperous people didn't see money as something that disappears, but as something that multiplies. They didn't avoid risks, they made calculated decisions. And above all, they didn't focus on difficulties but on opportunities. Jim decided to change the way he thought. He began seeing every expense as either an investment or a waste, nothing in between. He started valuing his time, his skills, and his ability to create wealth more than ever. This shift in mindset was the true turning point in his journey to success. And now the question is, are you ready to do the same? Adopting a new mindset was a huge step, but to turn this change into real results, Jim needed something essential: discipline and routine. He finally understood that success doesn't happen by chance. It's the result of small, consistent actions over time. His daily habits were shaping his destiny, and if he kept living without discipline, his future would simply be a repetition of his past. That's when Jim made a crucial decision: stop relying on motivation and start trusting in consistency. Every day, without exception, he dedicated himself to personal and professional growth. Small adjustments began to make a massive impact. He started waking up earlier, planning his day better, and setting clear goals. He replaced hours of distraction with learning, eliminated unproductive habits, and began focusing only on what generated real results. But this transformation didn't happen overnight. He gradually shaped his routine until the new habits became second nature. The effects were immediate. His income started to grow. His opportunities multiplied. And, above all, he finally felt that he had control over his life. However, there was something even more powerful behind this change. Jim realized that the secret to growing financially wasn't just working harder, it was working smarter. And the key to that? Investing in knowledge. He understood that, if he wanted to earn more, he needed to become more valuable. And the only way to increase his value was by expanding his mind and acquiring new skills. That was the turning point. From that moment on, Jim not only prospered financially, but also became a new person. Someone ready to seize all the opportunities life had to offer. And now, are you ready to take that step? That's when Jim adopted a habit that changed everything: reading every day. He immersed himself in books about finance, mindset, and personal development. Authors like Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, and O.G. Mandino became his invisible mentors. But he didn't stop there. In addition to devouring books, he began attending seminars, seeking mentors, and surrounding himself with people who were already on the path he wanted to follow. Jim realized that paying for knowledge wasn't an expense, but an investment, and one that would yield immeasurable returns in the future. Each new lesson made him more confident, more prepared, and more capable of making strategic decisions. He no longer waited for luck to change his destiny. He was preparing to create his own luck. This habit was a turning point. His worldview expanded. His mindset strengthened. He began to see opportunities where he once saw obstacles. But it would have been useless to accumulate knowledge if he didn't know how to put it into practice. And the first step was learning how to make smart financial decisions. Jim realized that getting rich wasn't just about making more money, but about knowing what to do with it. Before, he spent without planning, without thinking about the future. But by studying wealthy people, he noticed a pattern. They were strategic with every penny. That's when he made his first big change. He stopped spending impulsively and began directing his money toward investments that would multiply his wealth. He adopted a simple yet powerful rule. Before spending on anything, he would ask himself, is this an asset or a liability? Asset. Something that would put more money in his pocket in the future. Investments, knowledge, businesses. He prioritized these. Liability. Something that would only consume his money without a return. Unnecessary expenses, impulsive purchases. He avoided these as much as possible. This single change transformed his relationship with money and put Jim on the path to financial freedom. And are you ready to apply this rule to your life? This is how Jim started building real wealth. Instead of buying expensive clothes to impress others, he bought stocks in real estate. Instead of upgrading his car every year, he invested in courses and mentorships. These decisions, combined with time, created a snowball effect. And this is how he understood an essential principle. Getting rich isn't a matter of luck, but a life philosophy based on smart and consistent choices. Jim Rohn didn't get rich by accident. His transformation was built on solid principles, followed with discipline. One of them was simple but powerful. Don't wish for things to be easier. Wish to be better. He understood that success didn't depend on external circumstances, but on his ability to grow and adapt. While most people sought shortcuts and quick fixes, he focused on the long term, building a strong financial and mental foundation. Another fundamental principle was consistency. Save a portion of income every month. Read one book per week. Dedicate 1 hour per day to learning. These habits seemed small at first, but they became the key to his financial freedom. He discovered that the difference between failure and success wasn't talent or luck, but the ability to persist, even when results weren't yet visible. Finally, he adopted an abundance mindset. Instead of seeing money as something scarce, he saw it as a tool for growth. Instead of competing, he began to collaborate. Instead of waiting, he took action. This set of principles not only transformed his life but impacted millions of people around the world. And are you ready to apply these principles on your journey? Now, the big question is, what can you learn from this journey, and more importantly, how can you apply all of this to change your own life? Now that you understand what really held Jim Rohn back from getting rich, stop and ask yourself, Is this habit still holding you back? Are you spending mindlessly, surrounded by people who don't push you, or stuck in a scarcity mindset? If your answer is yes, then it's time to take action. The difference between those who thrive and those who fall behind is not luck, but the small decisions we make every day. What can you change right now? It could be something simple: cutting an unnecessary expense, investing in your knowledge, replacing 30 minutes of distraction with reading, or seeking new connections. The important thing is to take the first step. Because if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting the same results. But if you decide to act differently, the next few months can completely transform your financial life. Now, if you want to learn more about how to build wealth, avoid the mistakes that keep most people in poverty, and take the next step toward financial freedom, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here you'll find valuable teachings and strategies that no one tells you, but they could be the key to your success. And now, tell me, which of these changes are you going to start applying today? Leave a comment. I want to know what the first step will be toward your financial transformation.